We're good. I think.
All right.
We're better. And we're the Van Cave. How's it going, gentlemen?
Yeah. Going real good.
Glad to hear it. It's been another one of those days where I was ready to come in here and record and just hang out. So,
hey, that's the way I like to spend my time too.
Yeah.
This is what it sounds like when doves cry.
When doves cry.
Yeah.
I do miss Prince, man. I do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to admit how gay we thought he was in the
that is a shame. I'll tell you that I learned at Purple Rain that holy crap, this dude is an incredible musician. Like, I should have realized it earlier than that, but it was at Purple Rain when I was 13 years old and that album came out, and my brother got it on cassette, and I proceeded every time he wasn't home or in his room to go get it and wear it out on my stereo.
Yeah.
Because that's where I was getting really, really interested in electric guitar at that time and trying to get good at it. And I realized this dude is an incredible guitar player.
What?
And it opened my mind up to everything else that he did. And I became a huge fan from that time on.
Even here in Little Midland, Texas in the 80s, there was a clique of musicians and in high school. And that were in the Joe Satriani, Eric Johnson, Steve Vai, and all those guys, Tony McAlpine, and the whole just guitar shredder world. And Prince was pop music to us. We're like, yeah. And a Guitar World magazine published an article that took all the guys that we were just worshiping at the time, the Satrianis. I still worship Satriani, you can see by the background. But it listed their top 5 guitar players.
Yeah, guess who is probably in that?
Satriani's number 1 was Jimi Hendrix. Number 2 was Prince.
Yep.
I thought, really? Because I didn't hear a whole lot of shredding in what was playing, in the pop world of Prince. And I became a Prince fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And this is an episode about movies, and here we are talking about Prince and how awesome he was.
Well, this is a group of people that can't stay to a topic in a time.
That's so true.
It connects.
Yeah.
Prince was in a movie. So
hey, he was.
it all
Purple
connects.
Rain. I
Yeah.
mentioned Purple Rain as the soundtrack to Purple Rain.
Hey, so this episode spawned off of the one about bad movies in our Cinematic Atrocities Club, and we kept coming around to movies filmed in, and we agreed, around Midland, Texas. So we'll call it West Texas.
Yeah.
And we came up with way more than I thought we would.
There have been a lot.
Yeah, so I guess...
most of them crap.
Yeah, I don't know how to do this, so I guess we agreed on which was probably the best and the most centric one. So let's start with like the horrible ones that never went anywhere, maybe. There's 2 big ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's save those 2 for last. And let's start with crap. And, okay, let's rehash first, and I'm just going to go straight to Hangar 18.
Okay.
We did that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have had, and we talked about this in a prior episode, the episode where we just needed to burn off steam after a day, and we just came in here and recorded. How many people I run into that just, hey, man, I love your podcast. And I watched Hangar 18, and it sucked. Oh, my God, it was awesome.
Told you. Yeah. So let's don't completely rehash Hangar 18.
In case you didn't see it, Tim Kreitz is going to give you 20 seconds on Hangar 18.
Okay, so basically it is a government cover-up alien movie where the government ends up capturing an alien ship after it is involved in an altercation with the space shuttle, which is retarded. But
it's a real conspiracy theory.
But it's a
now.
real conspiracy theory now. It actually is. And we talk about that in the other episode.
Yeah.
So it was filmed in and around Big Spring, Texas, and then on sound stages out on the West Coast. So it's a great zeitgeist and a great time capsule of what Big Spring looked like at the time. And the movie is just horrible, but it's got scenes of Midland, downtown Midland in particular. It's got lots of scenes of Big Spring. And the hangar that they used for Hangar 18 is still...
Right.
at McMahon Airport, which used to be Webb Air Base. But even when the movie was filmed, had already been converted into a municipal airport. But that is Hangar 18 in a nutshell. we also made some really snarky and good jokes about it in that previous episode. So if you're interested in Hangar 18 in particular, go to, on this channel, go to Cinematic Atrocity Aficionados episode of the podcast, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, it's like
episode 3.
It's episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, popular episode, and it's there. So there's that one. And let us never speak of it again. That's a good one. What do you got, Mike? You want to bring one up?
Giant is the big one I brought.
That was a good movie,
Yeah.
though.
Mhm.
So tell us about Giant.
Giant's another one of those movies that, I kind of hate to say I haven't really seen it as many times as I really would have loved to, but, it's, what was it, James Dean's last movie?
I think it
It
was.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They filmed it over by Marfa, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, that was. I didn't take notes. The Gage Hotel.
I
Yes.
think so.
I believe that's.
Is
where
it
they
the Gage or the Paisano? It's the Paisano.
Paisano. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's the Paisano.
They have a lot of
Hotel.
memorabilia, photos, and
Mhm.
all from the movie that was filmed in and
Right.
around there.
So
Rock Hudson? was
Rock
in it?
Hudson, the one and only Elizabeth Taylor. Those of you who are younger, if you have any memories or knowledge of Elizabeth Taylor, you remember her as crazy old Elizabeth Taylor, the crazy old lady who married Larry Portinsky and it was going downhill. I mean, she had a lot of, I guess, emotional, mental, whatever you want to call it.
Demons, we'll say.
She had a lot of demons that especially sort of manifested as she got older. But I'm telling you, man, in the 1950s into the 1960s, there was not a sexier female human being on planet Earth. For my money. I mean, you're not going to, during her time period, she was the most beautiful sexual woman on the planet for me. And she is at the height of her beauty and her magnetism in this film.
Yeah.
And it's worth watching just for that alone, in my opinion.
It's such an epic snapshot of cinematography of the day, of the acting, of the everything. It's because back then it was. I maybe, and you guys know way more about film than I do, but there was still sort of a very stage-like sense of what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the movies were just such a big deal and when you watch something like Giant, imagine that's not something you could see on TV, on your little box with the crappy sound and all. That's something you saw in a theater, and it was huge.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so that part of it's magic to me to sit and watch today, turn on the surround sound, and just sit back and dig it.
Yeah, Giant is definitely worth a watch. I mean, James Dean was a great actor. He died too young to really come into his greatness as an actor. And it's something that also I think is important culturally, just because of the theme of it and some of the undertones in the film. So, we nostalgize the 50s. Oh, it was our best time. The post-war era, and while it's a period piece in its own way, I mean, it's sort of a period piece. It's one of those deals where you see that all of the seeds of discontent that would come to fruition in the 60s, those themes and undertones were starting to be played out in film in the late 1950s.
Very much so.
Well, I don't know if you guys know this. Just recently, Mike Nesmith, who was one of the Monkees, he helped with an art installation out there in Marfa, and they put up a bunch of like billboard size of art pieces that kind of depict scenes from that movie.
Okay,
So,
Oh wow, I hadn't heard about that. It's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool.
that's something to check out next time we're down there.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw one down that I just this very moment thought of. Barbarossa.
Oh, was part of Barbarossa filmed out here?
We're going to call it West Texas because it was shot in Terlingua, and I've been to the set.
I never knew that, and I love Barbarossa.
There was
I've never heard of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Willie Nelson.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, redheaded stranger era, right about that
Yeah.
time.
when we did the episode about destinations, weekends, and stuff to do, things to do in West Texas, we were talking about Terlingua, and we finally decided there was so much about Terlingua, we're just going to skip over it, and I'm going to have my buddy that used to live there. He agreed. He's going to come in, and we're going to talk about it. There's a movie set there. A guy bought it, and he was going to turn it into a period resort sort of thing. And Barbarossa was one of the movies that was shot at that location, and I got to visit it. So
that is cool.
It was cool.
It is cool.
So that was one of them. That was my pick. It has been ages since I saw the movie. I just thought of it. So there you go. That's all I have.
Okay, well, so before we get too far from Giant, maybe we should talk about Fandango, because there's a reference to Giant in Fandango.
All right, we can do Fandango now.
Is that
was
okay?
going to be like my number one pick.
Okay, well, we can wait till later.
But no, go ahead.
Okay, well, so Fandango is a very important movie to me because it's one of those movies that struck me at the right place and the right time in my life, that the themes were meaningful to me. Fandango, for those of you who don't know, this is not a bad movie. This is a masterpiece film. It's Kevin Costner's first major film, and Judd Nelson is in it, and Sam Robards is also in it. And then there are a couple of lesser-known actors that didn't really go on to do a whole lot, but play great parts in the movie. And it's basically about it's a period piece about the early 70s from the early 80s that was made in the early 80s, and it's about a bunch of A&M grads who had either graduated or flunked out of A&M and are looking, some of them, at being drafted and going to Vietnam, or they're toying with, should I get married? Should I not get married? And so there's all this stuff going on. It's about that paradigm shift when we go from being a child to being adult, and it gets forced upon us. And
it was very, it was kind of John Hughes-esque in that sense.
In that sense,
for the
yes.
time period, not.
Yeah, I think it was. It was about. I think more so than any of the John Hughes films, though, is that one of the things that really gets pushed through is that you can't go back. These guys are all in a position in life to where they can never go home.
Yeah.
You can't go home again. They can't go back to what they were before after this adventure that they take into the desert, where one of them is going to Mexico. They're going down to get Dom. We got to go down and get Dom.
Dom is
And Dom is a bottle of champagne that they buried there several years before. And they're going down to get Dom so they can drink this bottle and throw it into the river and then go on with whatever they've got to do in their lives. One's going to Mexico because he's not going to be drafted, so he's going to dodge the draft. Kevin Costner's character. One of them is getting married. He doesn't really want to get married. And the twist is that the chick that he's marrying is in love with Kevin Costner's character. They're still in love with each other, but they know that they're not right for each other. So Kevin Costner's character is, in a sense, betrothing this girl to his best friend. It's so poignant in so many ways, but at the same time, it's a really funny movie. So it's got this great balance between having these really just laugh out loud funny moments, like when they try to chain their car to the train because they ran out of gas.
Yeah.
and these really just, if you're a young adult and you're going through all those changes and you're starting to feel some of those changes in life coming upon you, like I said, that movie hit me at the right place and the right time, and so it made maybe a bigger impression on me than it otherwise would have. And then you pile on top of that, for me, the fact that I'm recognizing all these places where they filmed. They filmed at the old Pyote bomber base,
and you've been to a lot of these in your on
my channel.
Your channel,
yeah. In fact, I did. I've got 2 or 3 episodes where we just go to Fandango movie locations.
Yeah.
So that also kind of brought the movie a little closer to me, a little closer to my heart, if you will. Pyote. So Rattlesnake Bomber Base at Pyote. That's where the parachute school, Truman's parachute school, is. That building is all gone now except for its concrete foundations and its superstructure. But it was still a complete hangar out there at the old World War II bomber base, and they filmed all that out there. Some of it's filmed in Marfa. Some of it's filmed in, Alpine. So it's just all about West Texas, and then they're down in Big Bend National Park, or close to the national park.
Yeah, a lot of the places we talked about in that episode are there.
Yeah, so it's just a wonderful film, and I hold it in very high regard, as you can tell. It's one of my very favorite movies.
We had our pursuit driving school, like our police performance driving school, was at that air base.
Yeah, and for the year and a half that I spent in law enforcement, that's actually when I was in the academy. That's where we went for driving school.
Okay, so yeah, got to see that place. That was neat.
I know you guys have kind of talked about it, and I've heard you guys talk about it before. But it's one of those movies. I mean, it's never anything that I've ever seen or really heard of until I met you guys. So
Fandango,
yeah.
And the Dom Rock, if you just Google Dom Rock, it's still there and people visit it.
Right. In fact, we need to make a motorcycle trip down there, because the place where Dom Rock is, there's a really good place to park your motorcycles, and then it's just really a pretty short walk.
It's a beautiful place.
I was amazed as I went through and found all these film locations for that movie, how close they were to major roads and major areas of activity, and they still were able to make a movie. If you remember Chata Ortega's, the whole thing about the movie is that we got to get to Chata Ortega's, man. We got to get to Chata Ortega's. That was their ultimate goal. Well, they finally got to Chata Ortega's, and it had burned down, and there was nobody there. And so there's a lot of metaphor that goes on with regard to that scene. But not a lot of people know this, but that building, Chata Ortega's Bar and Grill, which is still out on Interstate 10 near Toya, the building's still there. You can still see the paint on it where it says Chata Ortega's Bar and Grill. That was never a bar and grill. They painted it to look like a bar and grill, and they painted it to look like it burned down. They actually were going to burn it down, but it was too dry that season.
You could see a lot of burning.
And the insurance company that was insuring the film said, you can't set a fire out there. You'll burn you'll start a wildfire. A large-scale wildfire. So they painted the building to look like it's burned down. So it's interesting to see. If you know where it is, you can see it from I-10. But I was thinking to myself, man, they filmed all these scenes out there at this place that's right off the interstate. And if you look in some of the scenes, you can see cars in the distance going by on the interstate, but they were able to keep the noise out. And
isn't that amazing?
It's amazing how in 1984, with the film technology they had then, that they were able to do that.
I was reading a book about it was about filmmaking and some famous people, and there were two movies that you would never imagine in the same story that I'm about to tell. Predator, the first one, was filmed in jungle, and they filmed it I can't remember where, Costa Rica or something, South America somewhere. The other was Brokeback Mountain. Both of those movies have this desperate feeling of being in the middle of nowhere, and they were never more than 30 feet from a road.
It's just like it's like Mayberry. You know, if you ever go to the place where the Andy Griffith Show was filmed, it was filmed on the 40-acre backlot, which was basically in the middle of a triangle between three freeways.
There's a guy, maybe one of you guys told me about it. He has a webpage. And he has frames from Gomer Pyle, USMC, and Andy Griffith Show and other shows where they'll have a scene in one of the shows with a shot of, you know, like you can see. You
can see just at the edge of the shot where they didn't quite get the Gomer Pyle USMC barracks out of the shot.
Right.
And it's a mistake, but, you know, once you've shot it, a lot of times back then they didn't have the ability to they just had to make it work.
Yeah.
So there are lots of little bloopers in the Andy Griffith Show that you can find, and one of those is that sometimes they'll let the Gomer Pyle sets creep into the Mayberry sets because it was literally right across the street from Mayberry. Yeah, I
kind of vortexed that guy's site one day or YouTube channel, and if I don't have it wrong, I think it's the gas station, whatever his name was, Wally, that they never showed. I don't remember if they did. Where Gomer and Goober worked in the Andy Griffith Show actually doubled as the bar in Gomer Pyle USMC, the bar where they all hung out.
Well, and also in Gomer Pyle USMC, a lot of the times where they would leave the base and go into the city, they used the Mayberry set.
Oh, wow.
They just filmed it in a different way so that you wouldn't recognize the buildings.
My life's a lie.
Change the camera just enough.
Just slightly, man. Yeah.
Bring that light in just a little bit different.
So there's Fandango. Great flick. I loved it. The only thing that bothered me about Fandango is the sequence in which they visit the towns.
Yeah, and if you know that, it'll bother you.
If you know it takes you out a little bit.
Right.
But, yeah.
Right.
All right, Mike, your turn. You got another one? We sketched a few down.
No.
Don't even do that, Mike. Don't even make fun of me.
I didn't even say anything.
I got my
really,
glasses
so.
here somewhere.
Okay, so we got 3 burials.
3 burials.
Yeah, we can talk about that. That's. I have some problems with that movie, but I think it's a pretty brilliant movie. So go ahead.
Let's see. That one was it Tommy Lee Jones?
Yes,
is in that one. And I should have picked something else. These are all movies that are great, and I've seen them or I've seen most of them, but I couldn't talk about them if I wanted to. But
I have not seen this. I'm out.
On a side note, real fast, I just cut that last little bit out for me, so I can
don't feel bad because the one I'm going to bring up, I'll get to it. But
okay,
go ahead, Tim.
Well, I don't want to bogart the commentary on these. I mean, I know we have a lot of movies to talk about, but 3 burials. It's a weird story, but the story was inspired by actual events. If you remember back in the early mid-2000s, there were a couple of incidences down on the border involving either military guys or border patrol guys who, for whatever reason, shot incoming immigrants or people right across the border. There was one really big incident that inspired the film, and I think it involved the military firing on illegal aliens or an illegal alien, one illegal alien in particular.
The Marines killed a herder down there.
Okay,
I remember that. Yeah.
So the plot of this film is based loosely around a loose cannon border patrol officer who's young and stupid and shallow and racist, and it plays to a lot of negative stereotypes that you see overplayed in films, racism and social justice being 2 of them. So I have a problem with it from that standpoint. Another thing I have a big problem with is that almost all the cops in the movie are portrayed to be absolute dickheads for no reason. Like Tommy Lee Jones's character is trying to just strike up a friendly conversation in a diner with a border patrol agent, just talking about guns. Hey, what's your service rifle? What are you guys carrying these days? And the guy's just a dick for no reason. I'm like, it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
He's trying to paint a picture in the movie that all cops are bad. That all the cops that are doing border patrol, that border security is a bad thing, and that all these cops that have taken the job of border security are doing so because they have some sort of character flaw. And I don't buy that. It's horseshit.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway.
Well, I would say the grand irony of that is they did have military doing some stuff on the border. There was an incident in where a kid was killed by the Marines. Big mess. They immediately stopped it and began doing more border security with civilian law enforcement. And because the agencies along the border are so small, people from larger agencies like mine, we got sent down there.
Yeah, I remember that
to do that stuff, and so I spent a lot of time working down there because
Texas
of that.
Parks and Wildlife did too. They got called down for all kinds of stuff. The game wardens.
Yeah.
So the problem that's the main crux of the problems I have with the movie. But if anything redeems it character wise, it's that it's about a really beautiful friendship between 2 guys who become very best friends. And they're unlikely friends. And I have close friends in my life who I am unlikely friends with. In a way, you and I are maybe a little bit unlikely friends.
Yeah, little.
Just from walks of life to I mean, once, a decade ago when we really kind of reconnected after a long time of just kind of seeing each other around town and saying hi, we realized, dude, we have all this stuff in common.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we're not. But I do have like this handful of friends in my life that I'm unlikely friends with. And I'm friends with them not really because I have anything in common with them. I just recognize that's a really good person. And you need good people in your life. So that is that's what this is about. It's about 2 guys who actually, when they first meet, they don't like each other. Tommy Lee Jones's character does not like Malquiades Estrada. He doesn't like him. but they end up becoming like take a bullet for you best friends. Well, Malquiades Estrada gets killed by this loose cannon Sam Pepper's character.
I have seen this.
Yeah, okay, this loose cannon Border Patrol officer. And so basically what happens is Tommy Lee Jones's character kidnaps him, makes him dig up his buddy's body, which is put in a temporary grave. And he ends up being buried 3 times, but the third place that he's buried is a place that he had told Tommy Lee Jones's character about before he died, a place called Jimenez. There actually is a place called Jimenez down in Coahuila. There is a town called Jimenez. Well, in the movie, he can never find it, but he finally finds it, or what he thinks is it at the end. He has drug on horseback Sam Pepper's character. I think it's Sam Pepper. Last name is Pepper. I think it's Pepper. Sam is his first name. Anyway, I'm trying to think of the actor who played the Border Patrol guy. And at the end, the Border Patrol agent, he basically realizes the errors of all of his ways. And Tommy Lee Jones forgives him and goes his separate ways. But he basically leaves his character there to find his own way home.
But that one was shot in its entirety down here, right?
It was shot
in
its entirety down here and in the Trans-Pecos. And I think part of it was filmed in Mexico, but a huge part of it was filmed in Odessa.
Okay.
Which is, for those of you who don't know, it's 20 miles west of here. It's kind of our sister city, if you want to think of it that way. I think it's worth seeing just because I do have a lot. Levon Helm is in it, which is kind of cool. He has a bit part in it. And so it's an interesting film, but it really does a good job cinematographically of capturing West Texas and of capturing the Trans-Pecos. And so it's worth seeing for that reason alone. But you do have to forgive a lot because there's just a lot of social justice warrior crap in it, and there's a lot of anti-police crap in it. And so you do, just fair warning, you have to forgive a lot.
That's 50-50 on anything. Yeah. It's almost anything that's filmed down here. Well, on topic of police and movies, this is not going to take long. It's going to take me longer to tell how I know about it. 2000, I believe it's 2002. This is back when I was a patrol deputy here in Midland. One of our deputies was taken off the street briefly. They said, hey, and she's a friend of mine. She's passed on now. She had breast cancer, but they said, hey, you're on vacation for a couple of hours. Go to someplace. They're shooting a movie, and you're going to arrest somebody on this movie. And right after that, she left on vacation or something, and we never got the details. She didn't even know the name of the movie. And it sort of got lost to antiquity. I didn't know what the hell this was about.
So it was okay, well, go ahead.
They were filming a movie down here. They needed a cop to arrest somebody. That's it. My allergies are killing me right now, guys. Sorry.
So let me make sure I understand this. They needed him to play a character and arrest somebody in the movie, or somebody on the set needed to
It was playing a character.
Okay.
They needed a cop to go down there and play. I'm
somebody
sorry.
on the set needs to be arrested. Send a cop.
I described that horribly because I'm trying to remember it as I'm telling it.
Okay, go ahead.
So she went, did the thing, didn't take very long. It was all done. And then right after that, she was gone like a week or two. So we didn't get a whole lot of details up front. And years later, she's passed on. This episode's coming around, and I start asking around. Nobody knows the name of the movie. So I found myself in a room with some guys today that were around at the time, and I said, hey, do you guys remember when this happened? And my buddy, who was one of our bosses at the time, remembered roughly that it had something to do with a champion steer or something like that, and it had Julia Roberts in it. The movie is Grand Champion.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Nor will you ever again. Apparently, it was a flop. The most stars I found on it were like 2. and I was going to at least watch part of it while I came home from lunch today to do laundry and stuff. If you wonder what famous podcasters and musicians do at lunch, is I do laundry. It was only available on some subscription service on my Roku I have never heard of. So
Wow.
all I know is it is a movie about a kid who saves his prize steer from slaughter, I guess. I don't know. Being sold, slaughter. Free Willy with a cow. I have no idea.
Wow.
So, but that was filmed here. Evidently, a lot of it was filmed here.
Huh. Okay. Well, I will have to check it out just for
Yeah.
no other reason than it was filmed.
You're not going to get much further than my just now crappy recollection of IMDb because I cannot find it anywhere. Maybe there's a trailer somewhere. So that's where we are.
I just thought of one, and I don't know. I think we have a mutual friend of ours, Billy Pond. He did Circus of the Dead.
Okay. Yeah, I have Circus of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is an interesting movie, and it was filmed. All of it was filmed in and around Odessa,
Yeah.
I think. It's such a strange movie that, I mean, it's a horror movie,
Yeah.
but it's a psychological horror movie. It's basically about a bunch of psychopathic clowns in a circus who they come through West Texas and they kidnap a family and they subject them to all sorts of horrible things. I don't have a strong opinion either way on it. I will tell you, I'll be completely honest. I like it because my buddy Billy made it.
That's kind of
And I did help with some of the pre-production stuff for that film. He also has another Grindhouse project that I was involved in that was called Mr. Fister. And you can see that
Is that the one your butt's in?
It's not my butt. I am Guy on motorcycle in that.
But it's
in
his
Mr.
butt.
Fister.
And I just like to say,
it's me. It's all of me. At the time, it's set in the 70s, and they needed a 70s motorcycle. And at the time, I had my 78 KZ1000. And Billy was like, "Man, can you help me do this? We got this scene that's going on at a drive-in in the 70s, and we got all these 70 cars. We need 70s cars. We need some 70s bikes. Can you ride your bike through the parking lot and ride it through this scene?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, man! I'm here for you. Whatever you need." And so I went and did it. It was a lot of fun. It was just a fun evening. We dicked around, but I'm Guy on motorcycle.
But speaking as Tim's bass player, if the frontman ego ever gets too big, I point out that his butt is in a movie called Mr. Fister. I just got to throw that out there every once in a while.
Dang it!
And it's all true.
Dang it!
Right. So it is true.
Well, I knew about Circus of the Dead and I knew about Doll Boy, but Mr. Fister I didn't know about. So now I'm looking that one up.
So Mr.
Wow.
Fister was created to enter the hobo with the shotgun contest.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's funny. It's which is a whole other conversation.
It keeps going.
But anyway, Billy's a creative genius in his own right, and I do like Circus of the Dead, but I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm not really prepared to talk about it, but it's worth seeing also again because it's filmed out here and it's a completely independent film. Like he got the money together to do it himself, and he did a really great job with it. The cinematography is really well done, and all that kind of stuff. So.
It's like log jamming or something. Mr. Fister. I know, man. I'm not denigrating anybody's work.
You're just
man.
getting punchy, man.
I am. It's been a long day. I'm tired. That's really good. Okay. Whose turn are we at?
I don't know what it's next on the list. We want to do Hard Country?
I got one that's not on the list. You showed me that movie,
Okay.
Mr. Fister, because we had just watched Pueblo Sin Suerte.
Oh, Pueblo Sin Suerte.
Yeah, we didn't put that on the list.
That's another one
Okay,
I don't know
so-
about.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
This is a movie. Webb Wilder's in the movie is why we saw it. Webb
Have
Wilder.
I seen this one?
Yeah.
I think you watched
You
it.
watched
with
it
us.
with
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
It was in our crap movie club.
Okay,
Because,
yes.
not a lot of people know this, but Matt and I are probably two of Webb Wilder's biggest fans. Not
Yeah.
only do we have all of his music, we have all of his movies. We know a couple of his movies line for line and have them memorized.
Yeah.
But we cover a handful of his songs in our
Yep.
band. we love Webb Wilder. So when we got our hands on Pueblo Sin Suerte, we were so glad to have it because we knew it was filmed here.
Yeah.
And here's another connection. We talked about Billy Pond, my buddy Billy Pond, who did Circus of the Dead and Doll Boy and Mr. Fister and all that. Well, my buddy Clyde Ailey with True Image Videography in Odessa was the principal cinematographer on Pueblo Sin Suerte.
That's the one with the wind inside the building.
That's the one.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that.
And where he's sleeping with, he's sleeping with his Sancha, and they're at opposite ends of the bed.
They're head to toe.
They're head to toe.
They're sleeping head to toe.
Like he turns his head and her feet are in his face.
Yeah.
Like, what was that all about? It made no sense.
It was really odd. And that's another episode explaining Webb Wilder. The character of Webb Wilder, I think, existed kind of before the musician did. They sort of fused together. He's sort of a 40s Shadows Through the Venetian Blinds detective character.
Right. He's kind of like
he's a Southerner.
He's kind of a Harry Anderson, a musician version of Harry Anderson.
Yeah, and he has kind of a dry comic version of Elvis voice that he uses in these films, and he has his own series, Cornflicks, and it has everything from UFOs to it's
horror. Okay, so if you guys are interested in this, check out Horror Hayride, and check out Private Eye and the Saucer's Reign.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are the two quintessential ones.
The Cornflicks, the series.
They're both part of the Cornflicks. Yeah.
So he pops up in this one. It's on his website, and we looked it up, and it is nothing like any of that. He does play a cop, and he does do a great job of it. The whole thing is, I guess the way to explain it, I don't want to say it's a shitty movie. It's more like it's like a play. It's sort of an avant-garde play that somebody did their best to make into a movie.
Right. Yeah, that it strikes me as a play.
Yeah.
It's filmed as if, like, let's say that somebody hired us and said, "We need you to film this play at this venue." That's the way it strikes me. I never thought of it like that until you said that. But yeah, that's the way it strikes me as well.
That's why I'm reluctant to say it's crappy as a film. It's a play. The opening scene where they're all in the restaurant. You said it. Longest cold opening ever, because it's like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a pan shot across what looks like a live play, live theater stage.
Correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I remember there's two women, and one might be in was it black and white or was it color? Because I remember a blue dress, but I might be misremembering that.
Yeah, it's in color.
Yeah. And there's a big bar, but it looks like it was shot in a barn.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one.
Yeah. And his love interest in Pueblo Sin Suerte is, I guess, his friend's wife or girlfriend, or
and she's I think she's
been in some stuff.
She's a pretty prominent stage actor.
Okay.
And everything she did would have been totally appropriate on a stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's very
stage actors do things very big so you can see it in the back row.
As my buddy retired actor Doran Ingram would say, her performance probably knocked the battery off the back of the camera.
There you go. But that was filmed in Odessa. It was filmed in Monahans. We figured someone was at the Sandhills.
Yes.
And we looked up the restaurant that was shown there. It was abandoned when they filmed it, and we figured out it was in somewhere Fort Stockton, somewhere along the way, and it's gone now.
I'd buy that for $1. Yeah.
But yeah, they shot the whole thing, within like 15 miles of this house. So yeah,
that is cool.
It's weird. I really, and not just because of my deep, near homoerotic love for Webb Wilder, is why I don't want to call it a bad movie. It's not that. It's just that it was a play that was filmed, and like Mike said, the little prop, the stage for the sheriff's office or his private eye office, the wind is blowing inside the office the
Yeah.
whole time, like they shot it outside, and it was kind of crazy. So
Yeah, it's.
I
I
dig
mean,
that one.
all of Webb Wilder's films have a penchant for the hokey. He plays up the hokiness on purpose,
Yeah.
and it works. In Horror Hayride, especially. My career is a wax string hanging out a cat's ass.
Exactly. Carlsbad Devereaux.
Carlsbad
Yeah.
Devereaux. Anyway,
I want to get to the last one that I have never heard of, Dumber Than Dirt.
okay, I'm completely
Dumb as-
unfamiliar
Who
with
said
this one.
that?
I said that one. From what I understand about this, my dad told me about this one, and there's two guys that go rob a bank in the movie. One, and then there's a cop that's chasing him, and that's played by Patrick Warburton. And it was filmed, or the scene in particular was like the whole bank robbery was filmed down in Sanderson, Texas, where a lot of my family's from, and actually the bank that they rob was the bank that my aunt worked at.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So-
That's cool.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a connection there to it, and I went and I found the movie on Amazon one day, and I bought it for my dad, and he has it on his shelf, but it's kind of sat there. And he's told me about it, but I've never really had a chance to sit down and just watch the whole thing through.
Gotcha. We
But-
need to do that.
Okay,
Yep.
we definitely.
Just in case it sucks, it could be in our club.
That's true.
If not, we saw a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Who said Hard Country?
Me.
That was very quick.
Yeah, well, this is another.
That's one I haven't seen.
This one is important, not because it's a good movie. It's not a good movie. It's a terrible movie. It's 1981. It stars the great Mr. Damnation Alley himself, Jan Michael Vincent.
Yes.
And it also has a very young, very hot Kim Basinger.
Yeah.
And
Right on.
And it is filmed almost entirely in Midland County and in
Okay.
Midland, Texas.
I had no idea.
So this one is
Hang
a
on, I'm
lot
writing
like
this one down.
this one is a lot like Blood Simple in that what you're going to glean West Texas wise happens a lot in the intro sequence and the outro sequence, the credit sequence, because you're getting a whole bunch of what West Texas looked like in 1981. You're getting downtown Midland, you're getting Midland High School, you're getting FM 137 before there was anything out there, in the middle of a dust storm, by the way.
Yeah.
You're getting FM 2001, I think, or FM 2002 with the signs showing. It's got all of it's just a complete time capsule of Midland, Texas in 1981, just in the backgrounds. It centers around this relationship between Kim's character and Jan Michael Vincent's character, and they're in love with one another. She wants to leave Midland because she thinks it sucks and there's no future for her here. So there's a lot of real life, sentiment in that. It's a great place to be in, to have all your dreams fail, is Midland, Texas. Because it's where all mine have failed, folks. So
Just smile at the camera. Yes.
big smile with pain in his eyes.
This is where we go to pour beer on stories like this.
Exactly. Yeah. So he doesn't want to leave. He's pretty happy. He feels like he has a future with the company he works for, even though he really doesn't. He's kind of fooling himself. She wants to leave. And it turns into basically just, I can't call it an anthology, but they get into a bunch of different situations. Like Tanya Tucker and Michael Martin Murphy are in the movie as bar musicians who they befriend and kind of hang out with and have been friends with. So there's that element to it. There's sort of the dead end life aspect to it. There's the tension in the love relationship. It just turns into it's a pretty convoluted film, actually. If I'm honest,
Something else I need to see.
yeah, but it's got a theme song called "Hard Country" that mentions Midland, Texas in it. It was written by Michael Martin Murphy, and it was performed by some band you've never heard of before that and never after that. The greatest honky tonk band in the world, or something, is what they were called. And it's a pretty bad movie, but again, it's not only is it a West Texas movie, but it literally uses Midland, Texas as its backdrop. Midland County is the backdrop for the movie. And we can talk about like Three Burials and other movies that might use Odessa or parts of Midland or whatever in sparing ways, but the tapestry of the background of this movie is Midland, Texas.
You just remind me of something I've been dying to say on this podcast, and like you said, I'm really punchy. It's been an exhausting week. But I'm gonna do my best. Joey Diaz, who's on Joe Rogan's podcast a lot, and he has his own
Coco.
Yeah, he told a story about a club in Odessa.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I've seen it. I've seen that.
Yeah, he
podcast.
tells a story about it and how very few people showed up. It was poorly promoted and all that. And I have played at that club. It wasn't in your band. It was another.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing happened. I think everybody has. But if you remember about 3 episodes ago, Cliff was telling the story about the crazy guy that ran around with the sound meter. He would go around to clubs. This club's in the middle of nowhere. And he would go around with a sound meter and call the police if you were 1 decibel over the 85 decibel limit and that was like the guy's job. And they came up and warned our sound engineer, hey man, make sure, and it was that same club that Joey Diaz was talking about. So parallel with the famous podcast when you were talking about, being alluded to in songs and stuff. Awesome. That was it.
But that's pretty much hard country in a nutshell. We can watch it some night for I've got it.
Yeah,
I own it, so we can do it for an aficionado night.
Right on. Well, we're down to the big ones and the good ones. This one I'm going to do it first because it's been a long time. I was a kid last time I saw it. Waltz Across Texas.
All right, my dad is in that movie.
Really?
Is it really?
Yeah. So if you look really closely, I think he's in it. I haven't seen it in a long time either. I know they filmed him. I hope it didn't get cut. I'm going to have to go back and watch this scene really closely. But do you guys remember Tommy White's Supply out on...
Yeah.
Okay. So they do an entire scene at Tommy White's Supply, and that scene culminates in them actually accidentally getting fire ants up their pants and basically having to undress with each other. Ann Archer's character and... what's the guy's name? He didn't do a whole heck of a lot.
It's been too long.
Yeah. Anyway, they have got to take all their clothes off basically to keep the fire ants from biting them.
Gotcha.
That all happens behind Tommy White's Supply. So my dad was there that day, and they needed guys inside at the counters and all that as they're walking through. And so my dad, I think, is an extra in Waltz Across Texas.
That's cool.
But I'm going to have to go back and look real closely because a lot of that stuff, they did short depth of field with those shots, so you can't really make out anybody's face in some of them. I'm going to have to get my hands on the movie, go back and rewatch it, and just dissect that frame for frame rather, and see if he made any of the cuts.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I did some reading on that movie before the podcast, and it was before my time, before our time, but huge movie. And that was a big deal.
Yeah, it got terrible reviews. Waltz Across Texas did. This is another movie though that uses Midland, Texas, literally as its backdrop. And there is a really great scene that shows all of downtown. It was filmed in the old Midland Center courtyard with Ann Archer's character and Mary Kay Place, who played the little mousy West Texas girl who's going to show Ann Archer's sophisticated New York self the ropes in West Texas, and we're going to call it it's our business and blah, blah, blah. And Mary Kay Place really turns up her fake West Texas accent. She probably fooled everybody else, but those of us in West Texas, we know what sexy girls with West Texas accents sound like, and it ain't that.
No.
But Mary Kay Place was... Again, I'm talking about hot chicks in these films. She was pretty hot in Waltz Across Texas. So there are some great opportunities to see Midland, Texas again in the early '80s as it appeared downtown. The whole Tommy White Supply thing. They filmed all around Midland for that movie.
So, go ahead.
Well, I didn't know. Real quick before we go on to the next one, or do we want to talk about Friday Night Lights at all, or is that something we just kind of want to?
I don't think so. I'll tell you.
Go ahead,
Well,
Tim. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Here's the deal. We talked about this. There are a few movies that were filmed exclusively here, and when you look at West Texas, if you're going to film a movie, you're probably going to, if it's going to be in on a ranch in Fort Stockton or somewhere out there, you're going to be based a lot around here because Midland, Odessa is the biggest two cities. We're next to an international airport.
Right.
All that, it's and especially at the time, it took less time to get something from UPS or FedEx or Postal Service or whatever. So they would base here, and so Tim and I talked about it. You and I talked about it a little bit. Filmed here, partly here, mostly here, or filmed here and about here, and it's still cool. So now Friday Night Lights. I went to Lee High School during Friday Night Lights.
And I went to Midland High School during Friday Night Lights. So Matt and I have a different perspective on this. I have nothing but bad memories about what the football religion did during that time.
If you go back and watch, this is going to air a couple of episodes after Telegraph Road episode, you will understand why I had nothing to do with the Friday Night Lights episode. And my buddy and I, Jim, we joked about it afterward. After we had a few drinks after the podcast, we were completely straight during the podcast, and we said, "Yeah, Friday Night Lights. We were inventing the fucking internet while Friday Night Lights was going on." It was a joke.
Yeah.
But anyway, I will talk about it though. I got no issues with that.
Okay. Well, now you threw me off. But now I thought you mean like you talk about it in a different episode.
I thought I was gonna. No, go ahead. We're on Friday Night Lights. Yeah.
I mean, it was set during the '80s, during just that like what you guys are saying, that football religion kind of phase that I don't think Midland's really ever gonna get out of. But I got one story about Friday Night Lights. Well,
hit me.
It was during the filming because you guys are saying you went to school during that era. I went to school during the filming. So that's kind of a connection.
Mm-hmm.
But they had us go out there for the band, and we went out and it was the middle of the night, and we had a big storm that day. And so they were like, okay, there's a lot of thunder, there's a lot of lightning, there might be a tornado. So everyone, get out of the stands and going down into the bathrooms. And so they had us all kind of shuffled it and crammed into the bathrooms underneath, waiting for the storm to pass. And while we were in there, the stand-in for Billy Bob Thornton was there and talked to us the whole time. So
very cool.
I mean, that's it was interesting.
Was his name Randy Joe Throckmorton?
I can't remember what his name was.
I just never mind. Stand in. Never mind.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Well, one other thing that happened that I thought, that was exciting for me at the time, especially as someone that was kind of coming from, just kind of making those little short home movies with friends and kind of, doing all of that. Well, I was in the stands, and one of the assistants came over, and he's kind of looking around. He's like, "You were right there," and I'm like, "Is it me?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You want to run along the sidelines whenever they catch, Booby Miles catches the football, and you just run along with him, and then once he gets into the end zone, you just start cheering." Yeah, I guess I can do that. So we did 3 takes of that, and then they said, "Don't worry about it. We don't need you." So
man,
send me back
that's
into the
not
stands.
Cool. I want to make I know we're not huge in politics, but something just needs to be said. During the Friday Night Lights era, Lee High School was a Robert E. Lee Rebels, still is the Lee Rebels to this day. There were Confederate flags on everything. Black, white, Hispanic on game day.
Mm-hmm.
And I am still digging through.
And Dixie was your march song.
Dixie was the march song. And
fight song, rather.
Yeah, fight song. And I had I was a photographer. I did yearbook and annual and all. And even when I was out of credits and couldn't take those anymore, I still did pictures. I have 2 photographs that I cannot find that are in my archive somewhere. One is at a pep rally where these kids bought a Confederate flag that could cover this room, and they put it on PVC pipe, and they would hold it up at pep rallies and games. And I remember it was 2 friends that did it, and one was black and one was white.
Yeah.
And we had a very famous running back. He went on into NFL, and he was his aunt was always there cheering for him. Everybody knew who she was. She was kind of a local personality, and they're black. And she wore a dress made out of Confederate flags.
Mm-hmm.
And the photographers, we used to pin Confederate flags under our arms because what are you doing during a football game? The whole time you're doing this. So we would have the flags like that. And it meant absolutely nothing but school pride to us.
Right.
And I remember our friends, my brother went to Permian. My family lived in the big rival school back then. And I had friends there, and then we had buddies at Midland High School, and they're like, you guys, you assholes can just go down to the Army surplus store and buy Confederate flags all day long and hang them up, and they had to buy expensive ones from, like, there were 2 or 3 print shops that would make little tiny stupid bulldog flags or whatever, and these guys were getting these giant flags. And oh, yeah, it was crazy. And you look at that now, and oh, my God, that's just the end of the world.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny how... well, I'm going to get really political if we go in that direction. So, yeah, we'll just say it's funny how times have
the
changed.
thing was, there was no one made light of it, and there was we had a significant black population, significant Hispanic population, and it just, to me, and maybe this is just, and I thought this in the 90s, it's like the kids, it's like we made something new out of that.
Right.
We know what it stood for,
Okay.
but today it stands for this. And that was all.
So here's the deal, and not to derail this whole thing, but I'll make a very short statement on symbols. Matt and I are Freemasons. We know a lot about symbols. The nature of symbols, almost unexclusively, is that their meanings will change over time. Okay. If you had worn a cross around your neck, like I have on, 6 months after Jesus died, you'd gotten a shit beaten out of you. You know, it meant something different then, okay, than it means today. Well, the Confederate flag is similar in that way. The Nazi flag, the swastika, the meaning of that flag changed, and the meaning of that symbol changed because of who adopted it, okay? It wasn't always necessarily what it set out to be. It wasn't always the symbol of the Nazi Party. It didn't always stand for what it stood for before that. It's an archaic rune. Okay, same thing goes for the Confederate battle flag. The Confederate battle flag meant one thing at the time during the war, okay? And after that, it just, the nature of the symbol changed. What did it become? It was about Southern pride. It was about, I'm from the South. I'm proud to be a South. Here's an old Southern symbol. So I will take this old Southern symbol and adopt it to mean that I'm proud of where I'm from and who I am. The Dukes of freaking Hazzard had 9 seasons with it slathered on the top of their car. Anyway, I'm getting way
woke
off.
up. My point is, we woke up one morning and it meant something else.
Right. It's exactly.
And
right.
I remember, I graduated in 89. In 1991, I worked with a girl who was on part of a student committee to change it. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, that's not what we were thinking.
Right.
When we saw that flag, it was on the side of football helmets and all that. We didn't think that, but we do now. The symbol, you're exactly right. Yeah. It's something, but
it mutated and it changed, and it has to do with what happened culturally.
Yeah. It changed around us. It's just to me, it's funny to look back and think about seeing a lowrider cruise in front of the school with a 15-foot flag sticking off the back of it, right?
And you used to see it all the time,
Yeah.
We used to watch out for that at Midland High School. We knew that when the big game was coming up between us and Lee High School, that we were going to see a lot of cars, and
we were
going to see, Confederate battle flags being hung out of the passenger rear window of some old hoopty car with people yelling slurs at us in the front of the school building about how
I could just find that picture of that little kind of grandmotherly black lady in a dress made out of Confederate flags that was happy. But We talked about
back to movies.
Yeah, back
let
to
me
movies.
apologize to your audience for bringing
No
that
worries,
up.
no worries, man. That was you're talking to a couple of geeks. Jim and I talked in the last one about being a geek in the 80s was not putting on a Green Lantern shirt and pretending you have Asperger's syndrome traits. It was a way different thing, and that's what we were in those days. We talked about There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood. Seen the movie several times, liked it. I primarily not shot here, but partially shot here, right? Who brought that one?
Yeah, that one was shot down near Marfa, I think, too.
Was it shot in its entirety? Do you remember how much was?
I don't remember how
done?
much was shot here, but I know it was enough that they spent a fair amount of time down here, and the same thing with the other one that we got on our list. I don't want to mention it just yet.
Not yet. I get to mention it. It's my podcast.
Well, that's fine.
I get to mention it.
But yeah, I know both of those were shot down here around the same time, and they kind of interfered with each other at times.
Well, one thing I want to mention about There Will Be Blood, if you're a fan of There Will Be Blood or auto racing history, check out the Petroleum Museum in Midland. Jim Hall Racing's display is still there, correct?
I believe it is.
And if you're into auto racing, Jim Hall was huge. Still alive, still in Midland, Texas. Jim's still here. Franz is not here.
Yeah, Franz is not here.
The engine builder is not here. We have deep roots in auto racing, but there is a replica of the wells that were used during the period of There Will Be Blood, and explains how they work. And it's pretty fascinating. And you want to talk about real work? Oh my God, the old wooden derrick, and
no doubt.
Yeah, I can't imagine punching holes like that. So let's get to the big one, guys. Are we ready? One of my favorite movies ever, No Country for Old Men.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, we debated this briefly, and I think we all voted this one in. It was partially filmed here. I forget already the other locations. The hotels, the buildings were not in Texas. Yeah. But the general theme is, and a lot of the outdoor, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the shootout scene and a lot of the outdoor scenes were shot here.
I think
is that right?
I want to say, isn't there a shot of the Music City Mall in it? Or is that a different movie?
That's Three Burials.
It's Three Burials. I did not recognize, now the motel, the motel scene was not in Texas. I forget.
Yeah, I think that's New Mexico.
I confuse them.
Santa Fe or someplace like that?
Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, thank you.
I think it was Albuquerque. Yeah. But the reason I want that movie in is it's set in West Texas.
Right.
And it's set very well. The only accent was
Bardem?
The girl.
Oh, the girl. Yeah, that one bothered me.
The main character, Brolin's the girl that
Brolin's wife.
What's her name? Kelly MacDonald?
Llewellyn's wife, yeah. She's Irish or something.
Scottish.
Yeah.
Scottish.
Yeah, so
because she did pretty well until that accent that she used is almost Piney Woods, Texas.
Yeah.
The West Texas accent was Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
If you want to know what we sound like, that was Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones has a quintessential West Texas cowboy accent in that movie. And the girl who played Llewellyn Moss's wife, that her accent
Llewellyn Moss, thank you. Yeah.
Her accent got on my nerves several times in the film. I couldn't figure out why, but you guys are telling me she's Scottish?
Yeah.
Okay,
if it's who I'm thinking of, it's Kelly MacDonald.
Okay, so that explains a lot, because she was trying to forego a Scottish accent in order to adopt not only an American accent but a West Texas accent.
She did a good job. It's actually, I take back what I said. It's more of an Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's more
of
an
Oklahoma.
It could be East Texas or Red River type of an accent.
Yeah, it could be.
But it's muddled. Either way, it's a very muddled accent. Yeah. Either way, that's the reason we can't place it, is because she didn't do it right.
Yeah. I can tell you from the law enforcement perspective, for the time and everything, it's balls on. Yeah. It was beautiful, everything about it.
I just love the movie. I love the story. The book is great too. If you saw the movie and really liked the movie, you should read the book, because the book is. Yeah, I know. That's easy to say. Oh well, if you like the movie, you should really do the book. But the book is true. It's just like the road. What you should really do if you're into the road and you're into Cormac McCarthy, you've got to read the books.
I loved the book The Road whenever I read it.
Not only is Tommy Lee Jones from here, Woody Harrelson's from here too.
He is indeed.
Yeah.
So, what else do we want to say about No Country? Everybody knows Old Country. I mean, it was such a blockbuster. It was such an important film. But I will say this: that that's another opening sequence. That's another movie where the opening sequence is the Trans-Pecos. Like, you can look at that, and the Coen brothers just nailed it. They wanted to capture what the Trans-Pecos looked like, and they freaking did. It's beautiful. Every shot in those opening sequences of the film are perfect. They're just perfect.
We talked about this a couple of episodes ago.
And I used to know the name of that video, the cinematographer that they hired to do that. And I can't remember his name. He actually used a red to film all of it. And I watched a documentary on him in particular and all of his gear, and he talks about the camera that he used to film those sequences. And I can't think of his name, but I'll think of it as soon as the podcast is over because I've studied his work so much.
I was going to credit a guy's YouTube channel. He visited all the film sites, and like, you know, where Llewellyn jumps out the hotel window and runs down, he actually walks that. And I want to say Albuquerque. Around in there, or not Albuquerque.
Albuquerque. I think it may be Albuquerque. Yeah. I know it's New Mexico.
But what got me about that and the cinematography aspect of it, we talked on a few podcasts ago about visiting all these old towns, and I'll use Colorado City as an example, where a lot of the industry's gone, and it's just kind of chunks of it are in ruins. You did the drone video at the old
at the old Baker Hotel,
the Baker Hotel, and places like that. When they shoot the hotel scene and all the scenes in that town, the little drugstore and all that, that's exactly what those towns looked like when I was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was perfect. I mean, the cars, the people, the clothes, and the foot traffic. And that was the deal. And that's something that I've noticed is different, that they get right in that movie. Is you go to those towns today, and even a town that's doing better, that's not a tourist trap type place like Fredericksburg, you go to these old towns, nothing's moving. And even the college campus here, like I went to the college campus for some reason at like 10 o'clock in the morning, something to do with work. I was picking up records or something, and there's nothing going on. There's nobody moving around. And I remember when I was a student there, it was like an ant bed.
Oh yeah.
But when they shoot like I said, the drugstore scene and all those where they're all moving around town, or they're in a cafe, they have a lot of extras walking around, and that was what life was like in that time. They really nailed the whole spirit of that.
They captured. There are some technical errors, but it's impossible to make a movie on that scale without a few technical errors. Like, I think there's one scene where there's like, it's supposed to take place in either 80 or 81. I think it's supposed to take place in 1980.
Yeah.
And there's like a couple of 83 model sedans and 84 model sedans.
There was a guy that made a big deal out of the firearms in that too, because some of them they didn't exist at the time period, whatever year they decided it was.
1980, I think.
But it's the way it was done is not that big of a deal. I don't know if they did it on purpose, if they want to make a suppressed shotgun that runs on blanks. Well, they had to use an 1187 because whatever. I have no idea how that turned out, but I can tell you the Mexican drug dealers, their guns, their vehicles, everything was spot on because I came into law enforcement at the tail end of that era before they started wearing, body armor and vests and all that stuff. Yeah. And that was spot on. Yeah. I remember that.
So everybody watching has seen No Country, but it's worth mentioning. It's just a masterpiece film. I mean, we could talk in excess of the length of the film about the film.
Oh yeah.
It's that good. So just, if you haven't seen it, where have you been for the last decade? Go see it, for God's sakes. Get on Netflix. Yeah, do your diligence, because it's a wonderful film.
Yeah, that's one you got to watch.
You got me thinking about it now. I might go watch that later.
Oh yeah.
I
may watch it tonight when I get home.
That's one of those movies. My wife doesn't like it. It's too dark for her, but it's one of those movies I can't stop watching. Also, briefly, Barry Corbin is in it. He's the sheriff's brother in the wheelchair. Mm-hmm. He's from La Mesa.
Okay.
From a little less than an hour from here.
Yeah.
So you want to hear the accent? There's 3 Texans in it right there.
Yeah.
Woody.
Barry Corbin, who was also Uncle Bud in Urban Cowboy.
Yeah, he was general in War Games.
Yep. He's been in a million. He's a quintessential character.
He was Maurice Minifield in Northern Exposure.
Northern Exposure. Yeah.
You want to hear? If you guys want to do a 12-hour podcast on Northern Exposure, I don't have my K-Bear glass today, but anyway,
I'm waiting for that episode already. So
we'll have to do it. I could do a Northern Exposure episode easily. Cool.
So did we knock out the whole list already?
Done.
I have a couple of honorable mentions.
Go ahead on.
Go on.
Honorable mention number 1. Swordfish, the beginning, set in Midland.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Even though there are mountains in the background, yeah.
Honorable mention number 2. I don't know if you guys ever watched the TV show Heroes. That was set in Odessa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just, all the mountains, all the orchards that we have so plentiful around us.
Yeah.
So
well, and another one honorable mention, Everybody's Baby, the Jessica McClure.
I was about to say
yes,
that.
Yeah.
Because it pissed everybody off.
They've got another opening sequence that focuses on making Midland look as horrible as they can make it possibly look, and then they go to the McClure's backyard, and all you see is palm trees and mountains. And you're like, that is Southern California.
Yeah, you got to understand in that period, we can go a couple of minutes on this. That movie pissed everybody off.
Oh, yeah. It led to so much
It was about the
heartache.
little girl that fell down the well, Jessica McClure. It was about her rescue. And and nobody could understand why at the time, that was oil boom time. Big buildings. This is back before you could email stuff to your home office. The home office, they had to move to Midland, and we have skyscrapers as a result. And it was a big modern place, and they made it look like just a shithole as much as they could. They filmed, rusty pump jacks from the crappy end of town.
Yeah.
It was
alleys, dirty alleys, and
and then the accents and everything, and I knew and know to this day many of the people in that, and they're absolutely nothing like that, and the accents were just horrible.
Yeah. That was a horrible movie about a great moment in West Texas.
It could have been so good, and it's just for some reason they felt the need to completely shit on the culture of West Texas and the town, and we all hated it. So
anyway,
I got that man. That good thing we mentioned that one dead last. Cool, good episode, gents.
Good times, boys, as usual.
Thank you
as
much.
Always.
And we just grew our list of bad movies too.
We did.
Cheers, and thank you.